So I guess I'm going to begin right now. I met I made new friends from North UK, and I picked up a few new words I didn't knew about. And I promised myself that I'm going to try to insert them, at least one of them, in my session. And I'm going to do it right now. And I'm going to ask you if you had a good lunch. And if you want to know what a lunch is, if you see someone from Humming Tech, just ask them what a lunch is. They're gonna, yeah. And the second thing I'm going to tell you is that, as you see in the title of my session, there's the word epic. So there's two epic thing in my session. The first I'm going to show you right now. So I didn't want you to have I wanted you to experience an epic session. So I decided to begin with a little trailer of the session. And the second meaning of the epic word is going to be explained later on the session. So welcome to Automate with Simple Tool, the quest for the epic automation migration process. Epic, isn't it? All right, a less epic subject, me. My name is David Saint-Ange. I'm from Montreal. I work for Finfino Consultant. I'm a technical director. I have a college degree in computer science. My first job using FileMaker, I began using FileMaker in 2005. I've been a FileMaker developer for more than 10 years. Mostly working on Casserole Nova. I evolved into technical director a few years back, and I'm in charge of technology and security of the infrastructure for Casserole Nova, and I'm a proud FileMaker 17 certified developer. I do have a family. I'm a father of two. Those are my kids. This is my family. I come from the west part of Quebec, and I thought it would be cool to show you some pictures of where I'm from. Those are from my friend Jean-François Girard. Pretty French-sounding name, isn't it? Yep. And there may be some coughing during this session. And it's totally because of the air conditioning system. It has nothing to do with all the cigarettes I had this week as a non-smoker. And if my life insurance company is listening to this recording, this was only a joke, okay? Just a joke. All right, serious thing now. So we're gonna look at the history of our migration process. I'm gonna introduce basic concept through the history. Part one was going to be how to get the source file. Part two is going to be how we prepare the migration and we proceed with the migration. And part three, how we can get the migrated file back to the server and start them. And if we have time, I've got bonuses for you guys. All right, history. Well, actually, the first slide is a basic concept. I'm going to talk to you about vertical solution. What is a vertical solution? I guess that most of you guys know what a vertical solution is. It's simply a solution that you install on your client. I mean, it's the same file for all the client. And when you got a lot of client, it's a nightmare to do the updates. So our vertical solution is Cascade Nova. We have more than 600 sales, about 3,000 users. We had three major versions, version 4, version 5, and Nova. And don't ask me what happened with version 1 through 3 and 6. Just ask the guy right there who's taking a picture. He's the reason for that. We had countless builds at each version. And we made at least 1,500 migration in the last 10 years. So in the last 5 years, I did a little calculation. It was a job that take me 2 days a week just to migrate clients. And the clients didn't have all the clients didn't have the last version. It was way too long to migrate. So it's about 2 hours or 2 or 3 hours of migration. So if you can calculate that, it's more than 3,000 hours or maybe 4,000 hours in the last 5 years that we spent on migrated data. So in the early days, in the version 4 of the Cascade, what we did was that we took the new build, open it, go into each table and do a manual import from the source file. It was prone to errors and it was extremely long, as you can understand. After that, obviously we scripted, so it was less long, it was less prone to error, but you still had to do a lot of file manipulation. You had to go on the server, close the file, get the file on your computer, export it, run the script back to import, and put back the file on the server. It took about 1 to 3 hours to complete for each file. And it's not really related to this session, but I just wanted to show you the post-migration script screen. It's a mess. It's our post-migration screen on the old version. So if you were, let's say, going from version 5.2.6 to 5.2.9, you had to push those buttons to do post-migration script that would replace data and would add data to empty fields and stuff like that. So it was a mess. Another concept I want to introduce to you is our launcher system. Since we put the version in the file name, there's reason for that I'm going to explain later. Next slide. We choose to have a version of our file, of the build in the file name. And when we do that, the client cannot launch the file because the name changed. So we build the little system that it's a FileMaker file, and it's going to look to a server, to a database to see if the version has changed. It's going to update the path and launch the file. Why we put version in the file name? Why not just call it file name.fmp12? But it's because it's easier to know which version the class has installed without looking into our management database. And if you're looking for an old version of a file, you just type the file name with the version. So and you can have multiple versions of the same file on a server. That's what gave us the idea to put the version in the name. The first automation. So after the script era, we told ourselves we need to automate it. So the first step was to automate it on the server. It worked, but there was a very high risk of filling the hard drive of the server. Right now, we know that 2 terabyte disks are very cheap, but we're on Amazon, and we try to have our disk the smallest possible. So there was a time that we almost just filled the drive because we were doing migration. It's copy multiple versions of the file, do migration stuff. So and it is also really very resource intensive on the server. So you cannot do migration during the day because it would interfere with the FileMaker server. Um, the technology we were using to do the migration on the server is exactly the same as the technology, the tools we're using right now. It's essentially batch file, FMS admin command, perform script on server. Now we add the S3 command line tool and command line interface, sorry, and the FileMaker data migration tool. And that's why it's the second reason there's Epic in the title. It's because it's the Epic Club. It's the easy, powerful, included command. What it means is that I don't use any third party or any plugin to do this process. It's just basic Windows batch file, FMS admin command from FileMaker, perform script on server from FileMaker, S3 command line from Amazon, and the FileMaker data migration tool. So the next step was to automate with using AWS instances. So what we do is we have special instances to do the migration for the server. So the whole session right now is about that. It's how to close the file on the server, upload them on S3, having the instance, the migration instance, have those files on S3, migrate the data, put back the file on S3, and having the server get those files back and put them on the database folder and open them. That's what we're going to do. The whole process, we're going to explain that to you. So what is the advantage of this technique? There's one really big advantage. It's that we use ephemeral space on those instances. So I don't need to delete the migration file. So I just do the migration, the server, the instance close, and the files are gone. But they are back on the server, but I don't need to clean that after. And you can have multiple instances running migration in parallel. So what it means is that if I have 10 servers with 50 files on them, I can migrate, let's say, 5 files at the same time on each server, so 50 files at the same times. And that's the gain we had with this technique. Basic concept, what is AWS? It's Amazon Web Service. What's EC2? It's Elastic Compute Cloud. It's basically instances, computer instances, servers. S3, it's simple storage service. It's the hard drive of Amazon. You can put, well, actually, I think most of the internet is on S3 right now. Any file you download from internet maybe come from S3. And why AWS? Because we need good, as you know, with FileMaker database, we need good latency, and AWS have a data center in Montreal, and we're located, most of our clients are located in Quebec, near Montreal, so that was the reason. And we also have clients in Paris, so there's also a data center in Paris. So we choose AWS for that, and for a lot of other reasons. And if we want to expand in the USA or in anywhere in Europe or Asia, there's also a data center, so we can put our solution there. Right? The next logical step for our data migration process was the arrival of FileMaker data migration tool that I think was released with FileMaker 17, but I am not sure of that anyway. So it came 2 or 3 years ago. It's basically a command line tool to migrate the data between 2 files. The advantages we have is that we can use the FileMaker data migration tool instead of the script to migrate data. It's way faster. It's less prone to error, because if you break your script, or you put an error in your import and export script, it can do a lot of damage. With data migration tool, you don't have to worry about that. And also you can use batch files to script the process, because it's a command line tool, so it let us automate the process. So I just explained what data migration tool is, and it's not free. You have to buy FDS, I think. It's not expensive, but you can get it at the link there. And by the way, all the link you have there, you can have them on the community site, FileMaker community sites. all the files I'm using, all the code I'm giving it to you guys. You're gonna get all my code. All the files are already there. There will be also on a Dropbox link that is going to be linked there at the end. But just download the PDF of the session. And also there's an article. So if during this session you're lost, you say, oh my God, I don't even know where he is or what he's talking about, don't worry. I've wrote a complete article, a step-by-step article on how I'm doing this. So I may even skip some under the hood video because they are on YouTube. You can watch them later. I'm just gonna demo what it does, but maybe not how it does. But I'm gonna explain you all the command to do it. So the first demo is coming. The nuts, the last basic concept is the nut. It's a not so basic concept. It's the concept of AWS VPC endpoints. What is that? It's simply something that you install in your AWS VPC. A VPC is the network of your AWS, and that make all the traffic going to S3 that stays inside your AWS VPC. It lets you save money because imagine that if I have 20 gigs of data updating one night, I don't want this data to go into internet for security reason and for money reasons. They're going to charge it for me. So just enabling the endpoint all your data is going to stay inside your VPC, so you're going to save money. It's more secure. And if you do a business in the EU and Europe, exporting the data to another country may not be legal, so GDPR. So having the data stays in your VPC is compatible with GDPR. So we have to think about it. So there's the link for the documentation on how to install VPC. It's pretty simple. It's a matter of clicking on and it's on. So last basic concept, the big picture. This is what we're going to do today. So you can find a little start there. That's where we start. It's the custom app manager. It's just an application. I'm gonna describe it later. What we do is we choose some files to migrate. There's a file list there. We send this file list to the server. The server is going to loop through this file list and close the file, send them to S3. An S3 bucket. A bucket is just a folder. After that, the script is going to start the migration instance. The migration instance is going to download the file from S3, the S3 bucket. It's going to migrate data. It's going to send the file back to the S3 bucket, and the server is going to download those files and copy it in the database folder and start looping through the file list and start all the files. That's what we're going to look at. And there's a full video playlist on YouTube where you can look as a demo and all the under the hood, how it's done under. So, part one, how to get the source file. We're going to send, the first step will be to send a list of files to migrate on the server. Let's talk about the source file. It's a file that I call the code, the client code, and custom app and the version. It's about 700 megs. I put a lot of garbage data in there just to have a bit of weight. So when we do the migration, it's not lightning fast. If it's a 1 megabyte file, the transfer is going to be lightning fast, and the data migration tool is going to be lightning fast. So I put some weights there so we can see the line appear in the command line tool. So we're going to have to fast forward because it's way too long, but we're going to fast forward it. And the second file I want to talk about is the solution manager. It's simply something like a CRM for your file. It lists the client we have. So right there we have just 3 clients. As we'll see in the demo, each client has a list of files. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on a client. We're going to click upgrade on the file, and the file name is going to be added to the list to be sent to the server. So I think it's demo time. Do that. So what I'm going to show you is simply that I'm opening the custom app manager. Yeah, so making sure it's the right file. Zooming. So you see there's 3 clients. I clicked on the first client. There you see the client code there. It's make1. That's his client code. You see his file. The file is named custom app. As you can see, it's build1. It's on server.defconserver.com. And what I will do is I will just click upgrade to build 2. So as I promised you, just by clicking this button, this file is going to be updated automatically. That's what we're going to see later. So when we click on this button, what does it do? The first step is simply an open URL command. And as you can see there, it's called a script on a file called server tool that is on every server. And they're just telling the FileMaker file to run a script, and it's passing the file name as a parameter. So as you can see, you see the client code, the build, and there's a file name, and it will tell the server which it will give the server the ability to export this file name to the document folder of the server. This is a video of it. I will. This is a video under the hood, but I think I'm gonna fast forward a bit because it's a bit boring. Oh, no. Sorry about that. I cannot see the to fast forward. It's strange. Oh, there's just no. Oh, anyway. So what I'm showing you there is the command I just showed you. But what I really wanted you to see in this video is the result of this. I don't think I even show it. Sorry. All right. No. So what was in this video is just where this command is. It's on the script, so it's easy. So where the automation start? It starts with task scheduler. So what we do is at night, every night at 10 p.m., the task scheduler run a batch file. So I promise you batch file. This batch file will just loop through the file name we just transferred to the server, close those files, and send them to S3. So that's what I'm telling right now with great design. And I think we're gonna see it now. So you see the server tool I was talking about? Those 3 files, those are the source file, the build one of our client files. We're gonna run this script because it's not 10 p.m. right now, so we're gonna. Yeah, those are the. I'm gonna pause here. I don't know if I can. Yeah, here. Okay, so I'm gonna pause just for a second here. Those are not FileMaker files. Those are just empty files. Those are the name of the file that we transferred to the server. Look at the path. It's FileMaker server data document, and we put the file name there to be able to loop through them to those file name and close them. Those are not FileMaker files. Those are empty files, and the only value of that is having the name of the file we want to close. So that's what this thing does. Yeah, so I'm telling you it's in data document. And I'm going to run it. So you're going to see the file close. You see right there the make one custom app. is closing right now. And as soon as it's going to close, it's going to be sent to S3. We're all going to see that in a moment. And there's a bit of timeout. In the batch file, I had timeout because if it's going to wait for the completion for the next step. But sometimes, for some reason, it's starting the copy command before it's closed. I don't know why. So I'm adding a 10-second delay. But the actual delay in production, it's 110 seconds because I put a message and clients can close the file before, so it's about 110 seconds. So as you can see there, the files are closing on the server and they are transferred to S3. We see that real time. As soon as the file, the third file is going to be closed and removed, by the way, from the server, we're going to refresh there, and boom, the file is on S3. So let's pretend it's 10 p.m. The batch file just started, and it closed the file gracefully, by the way, with the message and all to the client. A message, your file is going to close for a migration in 30 seconds, and boom, our file are in S3. So that was the first part. So there's those are the batch file. There's one batch file, it's called loop. It's looped through all the files we want to migrate, and it's running, it's passing the name of the file as a parameter to the second batch file, which is auto MAG. MAG means mise à jour in French. It means migration. So it closes all files gracefully and send them to the S3 bucket. What are the command I'm using? fmsadmin close, fmsadmin removed. That's about it in a batch file. What are the AWS command line tool I'm using? Command I'm using? I'm using the AWS S3 copy and AWS EC2 start instance. That's an instance ID. That command just starts the instance we're going to use to migrate the data. So at the end of the last part, the last step was to start the migration instance. And there's a link there to how to install the AWS command line tool on your server. Well, if you're on Amazon, for sure you install it because it's pretty useful. All right, I think this one is under the hood. I'm going to skip it for now. It's all available on the internet, on YouTube. So, part 2. We're going to prepare and proceed with the migration. So we're going to get the source file from the bucket and transfer them to the migration instance. And if you're a bit lost, don't worry. As I said, it's all been written on an article. It's actually my speaker notes in the files from the community. It's pretty easy to read. All that is explained, so just bear with me. We're going to get to the end of this. I'm just going to explain the C5D EC2 instance type, because there's a lot of instance type on Amazon. For my server, I use the T type because it's cheaper and it's perfect for a FileMaker server. But for migration, I need to use another type of instance because of the CPU burst credit system. I cannot start a T instance on Amazon and do a 100% process for a long time. It's gonna throttle because it's not made for that. It's cheaper, but you cannot use the CPU at 100% for a long time. So I use another type for that, and then there's 3 reasons for that. There's the no CPU burst credit. There's the local ephemeral storage, as I talked to you earlier, that I'm doing the migration on there, and when the instance closes, all the files are erased. So that I think that's perfect. And ephemeral storage are on the server, so they are faster. So it go faster, and it's compute optimized. So that's why I'm using this instance type. So what I'm showing you there is that in this part, we're setting up all the file we need to do the migration. After that, we set up the files. We take the clone file, we put it at the right place. We take the source file, we put it in the right folder, and we take the FileMaker data migration tool, and we put it at the right place. There's also the task scheduler, as in the first step, but this time is it configured to start at the start of the system. So if this instance start, it's going to right away start doing the migration. That is the command I'm using for the data migration tool. It's in the documentation. Don't worry. Don't learn that by heart. It's pretty easy. In fact, it's just the source path. The parameter are the source path, the clone path, the clone account, clone password, the source account, source password, and the target path. The target path is just the name of the file you wanna. So in our case, the name of the file would be the same name, but with version 2 at the end, not build 1 is going to be build 2 at the end of the file. And the last part will be to send back those migrated files. And so what it's going to do, it's going to loop through the file list, the files we have in S3, it's going to loop them, through them, and update them, and send them back to S3. So let's see how it looks in real life. We have our source file. As you can see there, it's build 1. So they are all big one, build 1, sorry. And we have a script there, it's called main. And I'm gonna start the main script over here. It's set up to start at the startup of the machine, but I'm gonna run it just to show you what it does. So let's imagine that this instance just started, and it does that automatically. Now I really need to fast forward this because it's gonna take a long time, but there's no button, it's strange. So okay, I'm gonna do this like this. So just imagine it's downloading. Okay, the red there. So the file has been downloaded, and now the migration is starting. So we saw that one file copied. It says the source file is there, the clone file is there. It do all the checkup, and now data migration is starting. So that's the FileMaker data migration tool output. That's what you see there. So I'm gonna try to. So I'm gonna fast forward this because it's kind of long. It's doing this 3 times right now for the 3 files. One for each file. And at the end of this, it's gonna send the file back to S3. So I'm gonna basically fast forward this also. And we're gonna see the result. What it's gonna do is we're gonna refresh, and we'll see a new folder. It's say the date and complete. So those are the migrated files. And as you can see, this is build 2. So we have our 3 files, but they are not build 1 anymore. They are build 2, and they have all the data of the source file that we had at the beginning. So all the data have been migrated up to this point. The only thing that left us to do is to download them from the server and start them. And that's what we're going to do right now. There's a video here. And it's the under the hood. As you can see on the back, it's we can see the batch file a bit. But what I'm gonna just show you a bit. That's the batch file. So as you can see there, we have some copy a command that's gonna copy the clone at the right place, and after that, copy the source at the right place, and the FileMaker data migration tool files at the right place. So it's all written on the article, as I said. So we're not gonna spend time to listen to that, but that's what this video is about. You can look at it later. So part 3, not the last part of this session, but the last part of the process. We're gonna get migrated file back to the server. This is actually my last automation challenge. I've not done it right now, not because it's a real challenge, it's because I don't really need to do it right now, because it's still in the early development of this thing, and I wait for the process to complete before putting the file on the server. So I basically click a button to get the file back. But the way I would automate this, the easy way would be just to use task hero. So let's say you start your migration at 10 p.m., maybe at 4 a.m. in the next morning, I'm sure that all of that is going to be migrated. So you just start the batch file and you get your file and it's ready for next morning for the client. A more elaborated solution would be watching for a specific file on S3. So let's say that at the end of my migration, I just write a file that says migrations completed on the S3 bucket. And I have a task scheduler on the server that every 10 minutes looking for this file. If it sees this file for the right date, and it just start the process and download. So it's a pretty easy thing to automate. It's just not automated right now in my process because I'm still doing it manually right now. So this is a great image of what we're going to do. We're going to download the file from the S3 bucket on the FileMaker server. The command we're going to be using to open the file is just fmsadmin open. That are going to be on our batch file. So let's see how it looks. As I said, we're going to just run a batch file. It's called get S3 completed. So I double click on it. It's going to download the file. Again, I'm going to fast forward a bit. Oh, so when the file has been migrated, the file has been downloaded, and now we can see that the fmsadmin command it has been copied on the database folder, and the fmsadmin command start them. As you can see on the console, they are beginning to appear on the. And again, there's a little timeout because they're going to wait for completion, but sometimes, I don't know why, the file is not finished copied and fmsadmin try to open it, it make errors. So I put a timeout of 10 seconds between those commands. And there you have it. You have our 3 files that are migrated to the build 2 of our app, and it's on the server and it's running. And it was all by a click of a button. How epic is that? It's cool. It's completed. Thank you. So as I said, the next slide would be an under the hood, but I'm gonna skip it. I think I have better thing to show you, the bonuses. So I'm gonna have time for the bonus, and they're cool, I think. So that was the whole process. I think I did it twice already, but just a recap. What we did is choose a file list, upload it on the server, close the loop through those files, send them to an S3 bucket, start an instance, having the instance get the file from S3, migrate the files, send the files back to S3, and having the server download those files and copy it to the database folder and start them. Now, bonuses, overall impact of this process. We are planning 4 releases a year for Casserole Nova, 1 release every 3 months. With the manual system, 1 round of migration would take 3 months for 150 files. That is 3 full-time, 30 hours a week job doing migration. So basically, with the old manual system, migrating data would be a full-time job. With the automatic process, I can migrate 5 files per server per night. There's about 50 files per server, so at least it takes 10 days per server. I can run migration on all servers in parallel. It will always take 10 days to migrate every file, even when I will have all my clients migrated to the last version. So I basically exchanged a full-time job, let's say $50K a year, for a 10 days just night. There's no work there. Just click every night. You just during the day you just choose the client you want to migrate, and it's doing it automatically at night. And the next morning, all your data have been migrated. So there's no human time implicated. So it just takes 10 days per every time we release a new version of our server. I think it's a great return on investment. The short term will make is I'm going to use S3 to get the clone file, because right now it was a bit tiresome. Every time I had to do a new version, I would go to my instances and put the new clone there, but it's stupid. You just need to put it on one place on S3 and have the script downloaded before beginning the migration. So this change has been made. It's not made on this version, but on the session version, but it's made on production. I'm going to ditch the date system I use. As maybe you saw, there's dates in the folder I'm using on S3. I'm going to ditch that system because I cannot do 2 rounds of migration in the same day, because basically the system just loop in the folders. So if there's already files there for today, it will re-migrate those files. So it's not good. So I'm going to use a lot number instead. So I'm going to be able to do 3 rounds of migration every day if I want. So that's a short time change I'm going to do. Sorry. And the last thing I'm planning to do, it's going to be the biggest one, is instead of having instances that are closed all time and just open to do migration, but those instances exist in my AWS account, I'm going to use the technology to just, the AWS technology to just create instances on the fly, having them being configured when they start to do this job. So what it means is, instead of having 10 pre-configured instances for my 10 servers, so 1 instance for 1 server, I can have 500 instances that start at the same time and migrate 1 file. Instead of 3 or 4 or 10 files a night, it's just going to open up and migrate 1 file. So instead of 10 days of migration, I could say, well, today just migrate everyone. So I click a button and it will launch 500 instances, do the migration, and put them back on the server. Well, I will not do 500 at the same time, because imagine just the download and stuff for the server, it's gonna be crazy. But you know, we can increment them and do 10 at a time, something like that. That's the future of my system. So, because even 10 days, I think it's tiresome. So every 3 months, I have every night to watching the system. So maybe one day I'm gonna be able to do it in maybe 3 nights. And that's where I'm going. But it is a lot of work, because it's DevOps work, because you have to have those instances getting configured by themselves when they boot. So it's another subject completely. Other bonuses. What about post-iteration script? I guess you guys, if you do migration, know about post-migration scripts. Right now, I'll be honest, we still use the script system for production. You know, when we export and import, we're not in the FileMaker Data Migration Tool system yet. And one reason of that is the post-migration, post-iteration scripts, because we need some time to replace fields and put data on some fields and correct some data. So, but I have great idea for how we can add post-iteration script using this technique, but we're not going to discuss that today. But maybe next year, if they accept me for another session, maybe I'm going to present that, because I'm going to definitely build that for this year. Also, encryption keys. FileMaker Data Migration Tool support the encryption at rest. So you can just add your encryption key in the command, so you can migrate your database even if they are encrypted at rest. The validation report. Right now on our system that is in production, we received after each migration a report. It's a PDF with all the table and all the data, let's say the record count and the total for. We have like 6 to 10 totals that we are interesting. So the total of sales, let's say, I want it to be the same on the source file and the migrated file. So we have a PDF, and if something's wrong, there's a red warning, and so it's something that I want to add to the FileMaker data migration tool process I have, but we already have that in our script migration process right now. So it's definitely something I'm going to build this year and present maybe next year. One thing I wanted to say about this session to you guys is maybe you guys doesn't have a vertical solution or do that much of data migration, but you can use the tool I showed you to do a lot of other things, like just deploy a new file for a new client. So if you can just tell the server the file name to look for on S3, you could just say, let's install this file, just upload this file. So you're going to click on a button, it's going to close from, let's say, your dev server, it's going to go to S3, and the production server is going to take that file, it's going to know the name of that file, and copy it and start it. So the exact same tool, the exact process I'm using for data migration, you guys can use it for deploy a new file for a client, or let's say just deploy your dev in staging server. You want to try this this version of this dev file on the dev server. You want it to deploy automatically on the staging. You can just click on a button, have the name of the file on the server, and he's gonna get it on S3 and put it on the staging server. I have a few slides for other solution that you can use to automate, to help you with the data migration tool. There's one from Listerius. There's also 360 Deploy 2 that is doing a lot of things, but also data migration using the FileMaker data migration tool. I think you can deploy file also with this one. Same thing with Auto. I think Auto is doing a lot of things, and it uses FileMaker data migration tool to do the data migration, to automate the data migration. There's also a product from Productive Computing. It's also just a FileMaker file that helps you use the FileMaker data migration tool. And finally, there's also another FileMaker file that helps you use the FileMaker data migration tool from Direct Impact. It will be available soon, I think, on the marketplace. As I told you earlier, this whole process, all the video are on YouTube right now. This is the playlist. I didn't do a short link because I really want you guys to download the PDF and click on it. You have access to all the files that I didn't show you really because I didn't do the under the hood video, but all the files, all the batch files I used are there. And the speaker notes, it's an article on Medium. It's not published yet. It will be in the next few days. I still have someone who's correcting it. So, but by the time you're gonna get the PDF file, it's gonna be there. This session was gonna have update, of course. And thank you. Please remind. I want to remind me to you to go to the evaluation site and evaluate this session, please. So that's it. So I think we have time for question. There's maybe one last thing I didn't explain to you, and I take a few minutes to explain. Is I didn't explain you what is the technique I use to write the file name on the server, and that's really the cool thing with this process. What I do is as I told you, is I do an open URL and I call a script on a file on a server, and this script call another script. It does a perform script on server from another script, and the other script just export the parameter it received from the open URL, and the parameter is the file name. So it export anything. It's just I export an ID. The file is empty, but it export with the file name I passed through a parameter in the document folder of the server. And it's really strange because you have to call a script, and this script do a perform script on server of another script, and the other script, all it does is export, and you use the parameter as the file name. That's it. It's all in the video. I didn't show you in the documentation, the article. It's all there. So, any question?
Why did you choose 5 and not 6 or 10?
5? Oh, yeah, it's because of the size of our solution. Because I still wait for the completion to get the file back, and sometimes with big files, it takes hours. So I do 5 right now, but it's also, I think 10 days is okay, and it's also, if you move, let's say I do 50, I have 10 server, 5 per server, I do 50. The next morning, maybe I'm going to receive calls from my client. Hey, this function is not there. Hey, there's a bug. So it's kind of, if I do 500 at the same time and there's a small bug that affects everyone, we're going to be screwed. So that's why I'm going with 5. Other question? Don't be shy. If yours, you can come and see me after. Well, thank you very much for being here. And have a great session.